The future belongs to the embodied creative. The creative who's not just the idea generator, who's not just the person that knows A to Z all the steps that it takes to build something, but the creative who has deep presence and creates from a depth that is felt in the work. It's not about the idea itself, it's about the how inside the execution. So if you're anything like me, as someone who's had so many ideas but yet never really executed on 99% of them, which, look, it's unrealistic to do every single good idea or to give form to every single good idea that you have. But if you're at a place in life where you feel stuck, or that you have all of these really cool business ideas, or that you have such a dream that you want to imbue life into, but maybe just feel stuck, frozen, or even just in fear, the fear of what if I fail, what if I'm successful, what if I can't sustain it, whatever that is, then this video is for you. I'm going to break down what it means to really dream bigger, how to be more embodied as a creative, because I do believe that the future belongs to the embodied creator. And lastly, I just want to give you some direction and maybe a little bit of sort of structure so that you can start designing and building more of those sort of passion projects, more of your dream, right? So if you're new here, my name's Kev. I am an award-winning furniture designer and creative strategist. I really help ambitious creatives design and build aligned creative businesses. So let's talk about why I think it's so important to dream bigger. Of course, when we're young, we're taught, what do you want to be when you grow up? Dream, dream, dream. Let's set that aside. I want to talk about what part of us starts to feel unsafe playing big. As someone who's kind of a bit, I'm kind of wacky and wild and creative, but I still minimize my voice a lot. I've had patterns of not being bold, of not standing in my power, of feeling a little unsafe, really maybe like expressing myself fully. And to be able to dream bigger, it means being able to have the capacity, one, inside my nervous system, but two, just the capacity to know who you are enough to be able to be bold and not waver by what the outside world might think of you. So much easier said than done. That's why I think that learning how to embody what you know, to make real in the body, to take your knowledge and your wisdom and make it integrated into every muscle. I heard a great quote. It's like, knowledge is only a rumor until it lives in the muscle. And I think that's so true. And until we learn to do that through our long, awkward process of going through our own shit and being bold and embracing our fears as it relates to every part of our life, but especially expressing our creativity, we're just always going to feel a little bit less than, right? We're going to feel a little stuck, or that there's more available to us that we're not accessing. So we're going to feel like we can't dream big. Even though we might have a big dream, we might secretly believe that, I don't think I'm going to get there. So to dream big means we have to make real in the body what it means to be bold, what it means to be so secure in your relationship to yourself and to your craft, right? A great litmus test is if you are afraid what someone else is going to think of your product, of your service, of your art, whatever it is, that has nothing to do with the other person. That's your own challenge to become whole with, to become right with, right? Until we really start to feel more and more secure in sharing our gifts fully with the world, without expectation, without attachment to outcomes, without even needing to be understood or received, that's magnetic and powerful, because from that place, you are able to make your mark. And you're not looking over your shoulder, There's a certain level of sort of embodied confidence, So to get to that place, we have to address why we have our fears of failure, of judgment, of not being good enough, of scarcity, which is deep, hard, long, awkward work. You can get a good flavor of that with what I call the Embodied Creator Toolkit. It's a training that has plenty of experiments for you to start to, rework those from the inside out. Links in the description below. But to name a few, we have to really understand where we put our ceilings and our limits on our own lives. And most of those are based in our identity. But it's not as simple as a limiting belief. I mean, I hear people talk about, overcome limiting beliefs, and I push back on that. I call it a little bullshit on limiting beliefs because our limitations are much deeper than a belief. Like, they are made real in our body, right? That's why we are limited by them. In the same way, in the positive, why when we make real in the body what our full potential is, our security in ourself and our wildly ambitious creative nature that is inevitable, that we penetrate the world with our gifts to create success. If you made that real in the body, that's what you're going to create. The problem is what's real in most people's bodies and nervous systems are those deep-seated feelings and fears of not being good enough, of being judged. And so it's not a belief, it's literally coded inside of your being. So to get down to it is much harder than just rewiring yourself through mantras or to start making a new belief system. While I encourage you to do that, it's deeper work than that, right? So to use your fears and I say your protectors, things like shame, guilt, those types of more dense qualities as the doorways to get into your code is what I like to say. Our fears really help us get to the underlying code that is running our life with or without us, right? It's running, and we're a product of that. So until we get down to those levels of rewiring our relationship to ourself and our fundamental operating system, doesn't matter how big you dream, your output is just going to have that flavor and texture of the unworthiness, of the hopelessness, of the I'm not good enough. And I don't mean to say this to be all doom and gloom, because there absolutely is a way beyond it. The way beyond it is through crafting your embodiment, from getting out of your head into your body so that you create from a place that has this sort of energy inside of it that is no longer coming from lack. It's coming from love. It's coming from a generosity. It's coming from, I want to give this gift because it's what my heart wants to give. Because that's radically different than, I want to give this gift because I think this is what the world wants and I'm expecting to get something in return so that I feel better about myself. And it's funny to put words to it because that's what's happening unconsciously, but when we consciously think about it like that, it's kind of hilarious, right? And we all do this. I mean, I do this all the fucking time, that's why I can laugh about it, because it's good to be able to laugh at your own neuroses and shit sometimes, right? So to dream bigger, we have to start to do that deep work to unravel and reveal our code so that we can write some new code. We can't just slap something on top of it. We only have the one code that can be running at the same time, and we have to be able to change it, not just build something on top of it. And that's why I think it's such a critical part of the work that I do is you can't, if you don't have that strong, refined foundation, what you can build on top of it's going to be very limited, right? And that doesn't mean that you can't create a good life. Like, I make this distinction, like you can live a good life as a limited version of yourself, but you can't live a great life, and if you're anything like me, I want a great life. I'm living a great life. Plenty of challenge, hardship, and struggle, but I want the aliveness. I want to constantly be surprised by what I find and discover inside myself. And I want to have an updated and refined sense of creative expression every season, right? Hell, every day sometimes, So dreaming bigger means we have to really get embodied in our creativity. And when we're embodied in our creativity, the energy of our offerings, of our products, of our art, of our services, of whatever the fuck it is that you do, is breathed into from that new energy that is no longer coming from fear. It can come from a place of freedom or peace or security, whichever word of the day resonates most with you? So when we start to change the energy from which we create, we also sort of shift our desires. Why am I creating? What am I desiring out of creating? What am I desiring to give through my creation, you know? That's when I feel like life starts to really pay attention, like, oh, this person's onto something. This person is creating from a place because it's in alignment with who they are, not as a form of seeking some sort of validation or worthiness to assure themselves of who they think they are, right? And it's kind of crass and sharp, but I mean, this is sort of how we have to approach it sometimes. Equal parts grace, but getting raw and real with reality. Especially if you're a more masculine person, it's good to be sharp with yourself. As a man, I crave that challenge, especially as a creative, because I'm done playing small. So if you've been playing small, this is how we can start to work with it, right? So once we start to get a more firm foundation and a better idea on how we create and where we create from, then we can start making a ruckus and having fun, right? This is where we can really put play and curiosity back into our creative process, because we know there's less pressure to get it right or give what you think the world wants. You're just giving what feels right to you, you know? So how much more your creativity gets to expand when you're playing, and you're okay being a little bit more bold. You're okay using your voice a little bit more because you're less dependent on the world around you to meet your needs. Like, that's a really fucking powerful place to be, especially as anyone who's running a creative business, because that's when you really tap into your most authentic voice and tone, which is always the path to success. Always the most magnetic energy that people are going to be attracted to. And might I say, like, the right people. All of the times that I've tried to create something for somebody else, I've attracted, I don't want to say the wrong people, but certainly not the right people or the most right people. Because think of it this way. If I am altering my voice, my message, to resonate with a certain type of person, I'm not really connected to myself in the process. I'm trying to connect to someone that I don't really know. Versus if I'm just connecting to myself fully and saying what's true for me, chances are that will be true for somebody else, and they'll resonate with so much more amplification because it's coming from your connection and authenticity, right? And so a great way to get more in our authenticity is just revitalizing play and curiosity. Being curious about the world, asking fun questions, doing something silly for the sake of it brings you joy to be alive in your creative process. Like right now I'm working on this new business that I've been chewing on for so long, and I don't know why. I mean, I do know why I didn't do it, because it's controversial, and it's like, I don't want to be judged, but now I'm like, fuck it. Like, I've dealt with what it's like to sort of lose everything and to still have me and to still love me. So it's like, who the fuck cares? I'm going to make a ruckus because it's fun to me. You know, I'm going to share this with the world and see what happens, right? I want to see how people react. And it's made the quality of my life so much more enriched, because it's like, man, like, what life am I living if I'm not being bold? And being bold's not like being, you know, disrespectful or being just like a dick to someone, you know. It's not, being bold isn't about like, this is my truth and you're such a bad person. Like, no, like, being bold is just, I can express myself and not take anything around me personally. I don't need to take the feedback from the world as an attack of my character, you know. I don't need to view my mistakes as there's something wrong with me. That's a powerful place to be. If that's you, I want to be friends with you, because those are the people I want to know. I'm being reminded of a teacher of mine. He's like, I want to know if you've gone into your underworld, you're my people. I want to know those people. And I think that's so true. I've really done so much work to venture into these kind of dark crevices of my humanness, and I become so much more me and free and open in doing so. And I realized that's the quality of human I want to connect with. And as that relates to creativity, I want to relate to the human who's discovered some of their depth and is not afraid to show it in their work and is making their mark without hiding. I think that's such an important quality in being an embodied creative. So when we can play and be more curious about the world, we can make our mark more confidently. Just like a kid, you give a kid a stick in a sandbox or at the beach, that kid's gonna make the most confident mark, just drag it across, and oftentimes it's really freaking beautiful, right? Versus an adult, you might kind of think about it and do something really small or whatever, and it's like, no, be big, be bold, make a ruckus. But returning to the foundation from which that's even available to you is the hard part. But if you started to do some of that work, that's my encouragement to you. Like, experiment with what it's like to be just a little bit more bold in your creative expression. Start today, start this week, Ask yourself, how can I do something that's out of my comfort zone this week? How can I stretch that edge just one step further than I would normally allow myself to stretch it? And track what happens, see what happens, and watch your creativity expand. I guarantee you that'll expand your business. I guarantee you that'll make your art feel so much more alive. So, yeah, obviously only so much can be distilled in such a short video like this. If you want more depth and more just like guided, structured practices and experiments to help you do that embodiment work so that you can cultivate that success in your creative business, check out the Embodied Creator Toolkit. That link's in the description below. And if you haven't subscribed already, I really appreciate you. See you in the next one. Ciao.